Do you really have to know how to fly an airplane or be a pilot to own one? All right, guys and girls, here is our catch of the day for March the 20th. March the 20th, another one of my patented little short scriptures, Mark 5:36. Don't be afraid, just believe. Don't be afraid, just believe. Women have been a big part of my fishing life. Chris and I spent a lot of our early dates in a fishing boat. And yes, girls, guys, most of the time we were actually fishing. That's right. I don't know if I've told this story before, but I tell you what, when I started dating Chris, her mama loves fish, and she just loved me to death because I would bring her fish. In fact, I would fillet them and bring her fillets, which was even better. And so a lot of times when Chris and I would go out on dates, we would get to stay out later. You know, I know it's kind of old-fashioned, and some of you younger kids today think that I'm really an old fogey when I say, well, we went out on a date, I'd have to have her back home by 10 o'clock. That's right, 10 o'clock. And but if we went fishing, and Chris and I night fished a lot back in those days, if we went fishing, we could stay out till midnight, 1 o'clock. It didn't matter, as long as I brought her mama back some fillets. And so what I'd do a lot of times if we had a date is I'd go out and I'd go and get out there and, you know, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd fish till dark, catch me a big bunch of fish and fillet them out, and I'd go pick up Chris and we'd go park. And we didn't have to get me back home by 10 o'clock either. We got back at midnight. It didn't matter. As long as I had fillets, that's all that really mattered. Some of you young fishermen that Some of you young fishermen that are listening to this, forget that I ever said that. Some of you mom and daddies that have young fishermen and fisher girls, forget that I ever said that. All right, eliminate that part of this. All right, we need to edit that part out. Okay, where are we going in here? And yes, most of the time when we were on dates, we were actually fishing. We pretty much raised our daughter Sherry in a bass boat. I just get tickled at that little story. Now, some of my best days are teaching my granddaughter Jordan how to fish. But even today, it's still unusual to see 2 women fishing together in a bass boat without a man in there. Chris and Sherry have never been afraid to go fishing alone because they know what they're doing under just about any circumstances, and they trust their knowledge, they trust their skill, they trust their experience. They're not concerned about storms, lightning, high winds, rough water, getting lost, because they know what they're doing. God wants us to believe Him and not be afraid no matter what. No matter what. This trust comes from absolutely knowing that you belong to Him and that He'll never forsake you. No matter what. That's kind of some of the biggest words you can ever think about when you're talking about faith. You trust in God no matter what. No matter what the doctor's report is, no matter what the financial situation is, no matter what your kids are doing, no matter what your wife or your husband's doing, no matter what's going on at work, no matter what, you're trusting God. You know that you belong to Him, and you know that He will never forsake you. A lot of people right now listening to this going through a lot of difficult times. I know that. But God will never forsake you. You trust Him no matter what. Here's our tip for today. Oh, this goes right along with what we've been talking about. Imagine that. Teach all members of your family, including the kids, how to operate a boat. And you can start teaching kids how to drive a boat when they're 5 or 6 years old. They don't have to be, old enough to drive or anything like they do a car. Teach them how to operate the boat, even your kids. We used to have a twin-engine airplane, and I'm not a pilot. I never did learn how to fly. But immediately when I started flying that airplane, I would tell my pilot, teach me how to fly this thing. Teach me how to navigate this thing. Teach me how to land this thing, because I'm up there a lot of times by myself in a twin-engine airplane, and what happens if he bites a bullet? What happens if this guy has a heart attack and dies? And I'm up there in a twin-engine airplane at 10,000 feet. I got to be able to put that thing on the ground. So that was one of the very first things. You don't have to be a pilot. You don't have to really know how to fly to own an airplane, but you need to know how. And your kids, your wife, your girlfriend, they don't have to know how to operate that boat to go fishing with you and to have a great time, but they need to. Because in an emergency, if something happens, those kids need to be able to start that boat, put that boat in gear, and drive it back to wherever they can get help for whatever might have happened. You just never know what might happen on the water. So teach your kids, teach your girlfriend, teach your wife, teach your grandma, teach them all how to operate that boat. That way, if the time ever comes when they need to, they're going to be able to do it. And the kids, they'll love learning how to operate the boat anyway. They're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So my recommendation too, if you own an airplane, which we don't, we do not have an airplane anymore, but if you own an airplane, learn how to land that sucker. Guys and girls, go out there and have you a great one. The fish are biting. Spring has already sprung. Later, I love you.